folks, there are two reasons we have this meeting. One of them is what you've just been doing. This is a fantastic time to can't hear me? Oh my God. This is a great time to connect with people you haven't seen in a while, to meet new people, to deepen some roots, to make new connections. And that's one of the major reasons. But it's not the only, or arguably even the primary reason. The other is that this is a meeting in which we do learn from each other, and we learn the exciting work that's going on around the countries in which we are doing with our communities and our partners that we all can learn from. So what I get to do, and I'm going to be very brief because you need to hear from them, not me, is introduce each of the three speakers, and we're going to do it all together, go through each of the three. We're going to share some of the work they have underway, the things they've learned, the instruments, the metrics, the tools, the approaches they developed, and then we'll have time for questions. Those of you who are in the old meetings know I tend to keep things moving. So we'll try and leave some time for questions, and we'll try to keep on schedule. With three great speakers, I mean, this is just wow. So first, and I'm going to do it, whose birthday it is today, because we're among friends, is Usha Menon, is Professor and Associate Dean of Research and Global Advances in the College of Nursing and co-PI of the NIH-funded All of Us research program at the University of Arizona in Tucson, Arizona. She's a recognized expert in behavior change theory and interventions. The major emphasis of her research is health equity for aging and vulnerable minority populations and the reduction of health disparities in cancer prevention using rigorous theory-based methods of inquiry. She's been consistently funded by the NIH, other national foundations, a fellow of the American Academy of Nursing, Sigma Theta Tau International Nurse Researcher Hall of Fame inductee, one of the top 100 alumni leaders of the Indiana University School of Nursing. And she's going to talk about, from the front lines, what does precision medicine mean for me? She'll be followed by Shanita Hughes-Halbert, Associate Dean for Assessment, Evaluation, and Quality Improvement at the Medical University of South Carolina. Her research is focused on identifying social, cultural, psychological, genetic, and environmental determinants of disparities in cancer and translating this into sustainable interventions in clinic and community-based settings, and thus improving cancer outcomes in racially and ethnically diverse populations. Boy, we're immediately following our speaker a minute ago. She's a nationally recognized expert in cancer prevention control among diverse populations. Has been supported by grants from the National Cancer Institute, the National Human Genome Research Institute, and the National Institute for Minority Health and Health Disparities. Member of the Board of Scientific Advisors, the National Cancer Institute, yay, and the National Human Genome Research Institute Advisory Council. And she's going to talk about academic community partners for precision medicine. And last is Kareem Watson, Senior Research Scientist with the University of Illinois Cancer Center, Director of Community Engaged Research at the UI Cancer Center, UI Chicago, and the Mile Square Health Center, a group of federally qualified health clinics affiliated with the University of Illinois Hospital and Health Sciences System. He's going to talk about advancing trust to engage diverse participants in research, dialogue, and participation with communities. So each of them is going to pick up a different theme. It's a great follow-up, and let's go. Usha.
Hi, how is everyone doing? Oh, thank you. Isn't it cool? You come to the national conference, they have cupcakes. I mean, this is just, boy, I do feel really fortunate. I'm going to use my little timer here to make sure I'm on track. So I know it's after lunch. I'm going to try to get your energy up. We're going to laugh a little bit and, maybe raise our eyebrows a little bit. But I love to start with this old Vulcan greeting. If you're a Star Trek fan, you might recognize it. But greetings. I'm pleased to see we are different. May we become greater than the sum of the both of us. And I think that's the important thing about meetings like this. It brings us together. And it's not just race, ethnicity. It's not just the color of your skin. It's not just the accent that I speak with, but it's about the diversity of thought and scholarship. So, yes. So, from the front lines, what does precision medicine mean for me? For the past year and a half, myself and my family by default have been helping to build a plane as we flew it. And that is called the All of Us Research Program, funded by the National Institutes of Health. It is an amazing opportunity for us. I have some of my colleagues here in the audience as well who have been helping me with the engagement piece. We've learned a lot of lessons. along the way, and I'm going to share some of those. The basic premise of where we start from is that of all forms of inequality, injustice in healthcare is the most shocking and inhumane. And it's very critical as you build your teams to think about people who feel and think like you and have the same philosophy. So a lot of times in leadership, they have you sort of think about, hey, is everybody in the boat rowing in the same direction? How do you get like teamwork going? Well, maybe you need to ask, is the right person in the boat with you? Never mind about rowing in the right direction, but is the right person in the boat with you? So this is a snapshot of what is going to be one program of million-plus people, so many, many, many faces, and so many different ways to engage the community. So what is engagement really for us? If you look at all of these things, it's education, consultation, communication, extension, partnership, participation, all of it is engagement at some level. And what we are discovering as a team, that it's not just about the community external to us, but we have a 90-plus person team between the university and Banner Health. And that's our community, and we have to engage them and make sure we're all going in the same direction. I'm going to talk a little bit later with you, and some of you already know this and probably feel just like I do. There is a difference between equality and equity. And that engagement for us is not just outreach. So we actually don't use that word at all because it seems very unidirectional. It seems like, oh, I'm reaching out to you. Whereas what we want to really do is make it a bi-directional conversation. So we are all about fostering the norm of inclusion. So what does precision medicine mean for me? This is what we have heard from our community constituents, from our patients, but also from the 67-something groups that Dr. Wilkins herself led earlier, during the initial inception of this program. People said they wanted to be included, but they wanted their voices to be included at levels beyond just, oh, put me on an advisory board, and just sort of ask my opinion every 3 to 4 months. So it is a planned effort. It's a deliberate effort for us, and we are reorienting towards maximizing diversity through very planned and targeted inclusion, reaching hard-to-reach populations, of course, and using very thoughtful inclusion and exclusion criteria. At the University of Arizona, we have something called the Arizona Board of Regents Tribal Consultation Policy. It is ABOR-1-13. I mean, I know this thing back to front now. I've read it 100 times. But it governs every piece of engagement that I and my team do with the American Indian community. So when you think about fostering the norm of inclusion, but working within the constraints of what your Board of Regents has put forth for you, it does make it very difficult. So a consultation before I can communicate with the tribes about any kind of research means bringing all 22 tribes to the table to have a conversation. So it is very systematic for us. It's very intentional. It reflects the needs and preferences and priorities. I'll talk about that a little bit later. And it's inclusive broadly of diversity. It provides us the opportunity to interact with our potential participants. We do not call it recruitment because recruitment really is a separate step. Yes, recruitment is when you've actually brought that person in, you've gotten informed consent form, you're signing them. We're talking about raising awareness and engaging individuals to tell us how we should be conducting ourselves in the community. Do we have setbacks? Yeah. Lewis Grizzard is a great Southern author. He has the best book titles. So yeah, Elvis is dead. I don't feel so good myself. It happens. There are setbacks. Have I messed up? Absolutely. It's that humility that you walk into the community with. Has my team messed up? Absolutely. Have I received emails from people saying, do not ever send that person out there with the jokes that he or she made? Absolutely. But we learn from those mistakes and we go back to the community and we apologize. Is there a formula to do this? I don't think so. Jack Handey, you remember Jack Handey? Deep Thoughts, right? Some of you are not old enough to remember Jack Handey. I wish I had a kryptonite cross because then you could keep both Dracula and Superman away. So, these are the formulas we think about in terms of, I understand cultural competency and there's a checklist and I'm going to make my team go through a checklist. And lo and behold, I'm going to unleash them on the world and mess it up with the rest of everybody coming behind because we didn't stop to think about the fact that there isn't a formula. And as our previous speaker mentioned, just look at Asians. I'm South Asian, and so often I get lumped in with another group. My culture is very, very different, of course, from many other parts of Asia. So how and where does culture fit into engagement? Because that's the key piece that I want to talk with you about in terms of our precision medicine, all of us research program strategies. So the first is using peripheral strategies, colors, images, graphics. This is important. People want to see people who look like themselves. They want to hear the same kind of languaging. And so here's a program brochure for the All of Us program that we're adapting for Alaska. When I go to the Alaska Native Health Research Conference and the Alaska Federation of Nations. Now that isn't the cutest little picture, then you probably don't cry at Christmas commercials either. I do. I mean, I look at this and I think, gosh, I really hope. Now we went through a lot of vetting with some cultural brokers in order for me to even show you this. And so these are the images that people would like to see, celebrating them and celebrating their culture. Evidential strategies. So enhance the perceived relevance of the health issue. For us, it's not one health issue because we're talking about precision health, which is going to generate, this million-plus cohort is going to generate hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of studies on hundreds of issues and many, many diseases and many, many health conditions. So, but we can make it relevant when we're talking to individuals from that community. So if I was speaking to Asian Americans, I might say, listen, suicide is the 8th leading cause of death for Asian Americans, whereas it's the 11th leading cause for all other racial ethnic groups. So you make the issue relevant to that community. Here's something I used at the National Association of Hispanic Nurses Conference because I wanted to really talk about, I did not need to preach to them about the disparities that still exist with Latinos, right? What I needed to say is, here's a problem. Less than 1% are actually enrolled in clinical trials. Linguistic strategies. So language, of course, translating into the language of choice for that individual, but there's also the vernacular. There are also idioms that people use within their culture, and it may or may not be okay for me to say some of them, and it may or may not be okay for some of you to say them to me. So let's look at this. So anybody know where this came from? The vodka is good, but the steak was bad. I know some of you know where this came from. So this came from an English phrase that was translated into Latin and simply back translated. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. Do you see how you lose the intent if you follow a formula? Once I discovered this, and it was actually our methodologist that taught me this, I have never used back translation in any of my studies because we use a committee-based translation so that we get the perspectives of multiple people. And we're going for content equivalence, not linguistic equivalence. Humor. This may or may not be funny to some of you, yes? You'll be happy to know race played no part in this decision. May not be appropriate for me to use with all audiences. Involving those constituents, lay health workers, community members, but I want to show you an example of something we're doing. So I don't know if you can see it very well, but it's the picture of the gentleman, the posters on the wall. This is the Banner Health Hospital in Tucson, the cafeteria. And we're still in beta phase, so we're not allowed to do a lot of external, communications. We're still doing it within our group. What we did is we put out a call and asked what we call our friendlies, the initial first 800 or so who are in the program, to whether they would like to give testimonial. And so they agreed for their pictures. And so you go into the cafeteria, you see someone who might be working in your department. You see a poster, you see them say, precision medicine is really important. And then you think, yeah, maybe it's important for me to do this. And so they're all over now, most of the cafeterias. This is something, remember I talked about taking into account the needs and preferences of the community? So we have a retention newsletter, and this goes out. You're now one of 506 participants. This went out last month. So if you are one of the million you've enrolled, you get this newsletter. But the key elements the first elements that you see in this newsletter actually came from community needs assessments that were already done by the local library. So we didn't recreate the wheel. People are tired of being surveyed, yes? How many of you heard that from your communities? I don't want to fill out another survey. What are you going to do for me? I've given you data. And so here we are. We took existing needs assessments. We had a couple of graduate students go through and figure out what the top utterances were. And then we focus our retention newsletter on the needs the community already told us they had. So we're trying to be respectful and give back in that way. Sociocultural strategies. This is recognizing a group's cultural values, beliefs, and behaviors, and understanding that they should be recognized, reinforced, and leveraged to give context rather than to assume that there's a formula. So let's look at some of these. This is a very classic picture of missed expectations, which can lead to discord. So you all heard it's my birthday, but there's a couple of key milestones related to this. I'm a little over half a century now, but I've also lived over half my life in the United States. And when I go back and engage with my family, there is a distinct difference because they truly feel I'm not just acculturated, I have been assimilated. And so there's a distinct difference in how we respond to each other, even in terms of values. Here's something that this is about valuing the culture of the place that you are. So we're in Tucson, which is wildcat country, and that's the mascot for the University of Arizona. And so we have these big paw prints with the All of Us program, and that's actually a picture of my truck that has this on it, and I drive around town with it. So not only does it say, hey, look, I'm recognizing something that's really important in wildcat country, but I'm also saying, I believe in it so much, I'm willing to put this on my truck and drive around with it. It's really all about perspective. You can be as culturally salient, sensitive, appropriate as you can be, but if that person receiving the message doesn't perceive that, then it's really not worth anything at all, right? And so depending on where you are, the Australia or the US, you may be down under or, top up. It just depends on where you're looking at things from. It's hard work. And so what I say to my team is the impossible could not have happened, and therefore the impossible must be possible in spite of appearances. So we're going to get over 5 years our 150,000 people, but we're going to do it the right way. FAIR isn't about everybody getting the same thing, and this is what we are trying to recognize. It's not about making the same kind of brochure to go out to everybody. It's about making sure that people get what they need in order for them to be successful. In this case, it's not about recruitment, but it's about making sure that these individuals have the opportunity to learn about the program and to make an informed decision. And so if you say no at the end of the day, it's perfectly okay, but you had a choice and you made an informed decision for yourself, for your family. And so then we come to equality versus equity. So this is really important, right? Equality means you give the same size box to everybody, and so you think you've created fairness, but you really haven't. If you look at the next picture, that's true equity, because you gave these individuals the size of a box they needed in order to watch the baseball game, which was the goal. That was success for them. So who's accountable? All of us, every single one of us in this room is accountable, and I hope you'll take this message back with you. Jack Handy says, if you ever crawl inside an old hollow log and go to sleep, and while you're in there, some guys come and seal up both ends and put in a truck and take it to another city, boy, I don't know what to tell you. So it's your responsibility to make sure that people don't try to put a formula into engagement, that you follow the appropriate strategies. When is it time to act? Here's Lewis Grizzard. When my love comes back from the restroom, will I be too old to care? We do not have time to wait. Every single day that I do not do the right thing in this community is 2 steps back for this national program and for my university. And so we work very hard to make sure that every single day, if we don't have the answer, we say we don't have it. We're honest. We talk about the things that we wish were different with the program. And so I know Consuela has kept me very honest over the past year, asked me some hard questions, and I decided I would be just as honest with the community. So when we go out and they say, well, is everything great? I say, no, it isn't. Some of it I cannot share with you because, come on, truly, I did get 43 million as part of a team. So, I mean, how much am I really going to say? However, in truth, there are some things we wish would be different. There are things that we will work on with you, and that's why we need your voice here. Who's watching? Every single person. Don't bend over in the garden, Granny. You know them. Peter's got eyes. So these are the book titles I was telling you about. But every single time we go out and we talk about research and we don't do what is appropriate for that group that is giving us of their time and that is giving us of their trust, somebody is watching. And so you're setting a precedent, not just for yourself, right? But you're setting a precedent for those people who are coming behind you as well. But I truly believe that if you can dream it, you can make it happen. And so my team is all about making this happen the absolutely appropriate way. And we have, in some instances, quote unquote, pushed back against leadership and said, we will not do that, or we will not go to that meeting because we don't have the appropriate materials, or we will not go engage XYZ community because we don't have anything to show them that is appropriate and that is sensitive to them. So coming back, I think the key message I wanted to talk with you about in terms of engagement is not to think about equality, but to really think about equity, so that through equity, you don't create more disparity. Precision health is an amazing opportunity. It is going to change the future of healthcare. It is going to change the future of medicine. Whether we believe we like it or not, this is coming. It's already here. And so how can we not create more disparities through this opportunity, but actually create equity? Thank you.